Hello folks, welcome to Outdoors with Bud. I'm your host, Bud Fields. In this segment I want to talk to you because a lot of people ask me what is the difference between a spinning rod and reel and a bait casting rod and reel, and which is the best. Well, really, it depends on the individual. What I'm showing you right here is the spinning rod and reel. Now most of your rods, now this one here is a custom made rod for me by Jim Grant from Grant Custom Rods. It's a graphite blank, very sensitive. Now, one of the advantages of fishing a spinning rod and reel, and this particular type is very popular for the pan fishermen that fishes for bluegill, small bass, crappie, goggle eye, because you can use much lighter fishing line and you can throw a much lighter lure. And if you try to use that same lighter line and smaller lure on a heavier duty bait caster, it will not work worth a darn for you. You're not going to be happy with it. But you can also use a lightweight rod and reel in the spinning rod and reel class for bass fishing, because I've won a lot of tournaments with it. Now most of the rods that I'm going to talk about here, you can buy them in different lengths. You can get them from approximately 5 foot long upwards of over 8 foot long, depending on whether you're going to go like deep sea fishing or what. But most of the time, between 6 foot and 7 foot is your most popular ones. And then not only is the length difference, there's a different diameter, different power and strength of the rod itself. You can buy like a spinning outfit, you can buy that in an ultralight, which is almost like a buggy whip. You can just really whip it back and forth. The advantage of using light or an ultralight is you can catch a small fish and it's going to put up a fight and it's going to feel like it's a tarpon, but it's a lot of fun to use. Now you can get it, like I say, in light, ultralight, you can get them in medium light, you can get them in medium heavy, and extra heavy, which is a flipping stick. But most of the time I would recommend, if you're just starting out, get about a 6 foot rod and a medium to a medium heavy action, and spool that with maybe, I'm going to say 8-pound test line, and use the smaller lures like anywhere from about a 1/16 up to maybe a quarter of an ounce, and you're going to be pretty happy with it. But most of these rods are very sensitive. And in my bass fishing, we are not allowed to use live bait. We cannot use a shad, or we cannot use a minnow, a bluegill, or anything like that to catch fish. We have to use an artificial lures. And you have to take your equipment and learn how it works. And then you have to use your skill to make that piece of plastic or wooden lure, make it look like a Big Mac from McDonald's, and the fish wants to hit it. But the spinning rod does have an application, and I like to use this for like skipping sideways, and we've got access to a farm pond, and when the weather, if it ever gets nice here in Indiana, we're going to be shooting some segments at a farm pond. I'm going to show you a lot of the different techniques like pitching, skipping, overhand cast, side cast, and flipping, and all this other stuff, because it's a lot of fun. There's different ways you can project your lures out there for the fish. But if you're just starting out, a rod and reel like this is going to be great for you. Now you notice on this particular rod and reel, the reel is down. Now I'm right-handed, which means I'm going to be holding the rod in my right hand. Now here's the reel handle on the side, and you turn this to retrieve your line in. Now you can buy some pretty cheap rods and you can catch fish with them, but I recommend buying the best equipment that you can afford, because it's going to be better performance for you, and it's going to last you a lot longer. Now on this rod, years ago they was making rods out of like even steel, which was not one of the best things to use during a lightning storm, but it lacked sensitivity. They was using fiberglass, they were using a compound, a material they called boron, and now they've gone to graphite, which makes it very sensitive. Now years ago when they made these rods, the blank come down inside of the handle, and that blank stopped right here. From here back it was mainly just plastic and cork for the handle, which killed a lot of the sensitivity. Not anymore. These rods are made with this graphite that goes all the way down and extends to the bottom of it. Now what that does is, like when you're fishing a worm on the bottom, if you're pulling that worm up and down in contact with the bottom, if that lure hits a rock, you can actually feel that. And when a bass hits it, it's not, you won't hear it like that, but it feels just like somebody tipped it. Now these rods are so sensitive that when I was working the boat shows in Indianapolis, well, I showed my grandkids how you check sensitivity. And my grandson said they wanted a talking fishing pole. And the reason for that was I would hand the rod to the customer. I would take the rod tip and I'd just touch it to my Adam's apple. And I would not touch it other than just putting it up here, but the vibration of my Adam's apple was transmitted the full length of that rod all the way down to where the hand was. And years ago, that was completely unheard of. And just like a lot of the other products that I've talked about, over the years, they've made so many improvements to them. It's been phenomenal. But fishing, you can catch a fish on a rod and reel that you buy at a garage sale. But I don't recommend that too much because you're not going to be happy with it and it's not going to last very long for you. All right, now the next rod and reel I'm going to show you, I've used these for many, many years and a lot of people don't like them. It's referred to as a bait casting rod and reel. Now this one, you can see the reel sets on top. Well, when you're right-handed, there's a little more work to it. You got to hold it in your right hand and cast it. Now when your lure hits the water, you have to transfer that rod to the other hand, then turn the crank with your right hand. But you do it so much you get used to it, it's not a big deal. Now once again, this has got the same type of graphite that goes all the way down through the handle. The handles are made out of cork. Some of them will only go part of the way. But once again, you can get these in different weights. And it depends on how heavy you want to fish. They make one that is a flip and stick, and it's almost like fishing with a pool cue. I mean, there's very little bend in that when you set the hook. Now this particular rod is 7 foot long. It's made by the Grant Rods, and this is a cranking rod. Now the reason it's much longer is the longer your rod is, you get a little better distance out of it. But when you get to be my age, you got to remember, when you cast that out there a long way, you got to reel it back a long way. So you might want to bear that in mind. And it depends too on whether you're going to be fishing off the bank. If you're fishing off the bank, you can get by with using a longer rod. If you're fishing in a boat out in the water, you can get by with a longer rod because you're not going to be hitting tree limbs and branches. And some guys they just feel better with a shorter rod and reel. But I tell you, I've worked a lot with this company right here. I've had an association with them for over, I don't know, 20, 22 years. And thing about a Grant rod, and I probably shouldn't say that, but one thing about a Grant rod, you buy it once. It's got an unlimited lifetime warranty on it. Now, they've got a customer service place. I hear it's pretty good, but in all the years with them, I have never had an issue. Never had an issue with the rod, so I've never had to send it back. But I could pick up the phone right now and call Jim Grant, the guy that owns it, and talk to him right away. I got my grandsons for their graduation. I bought them a new Grant rod, and they put in gold lettering, just like when my grandson Connor graduated, they put to Connor Zeck, graduate 2019 or whatever year it was, and then I got one for my other two grandsons the same way. But if you like to bass fish, I recommend at least you try it. Now, a lot of people get scared of the bait caster because I must be a ventriloquist. I didn't know I could do that. But anyway, the bait casting reel, there's some adjustments on it that I will go into in a different segment. But if you make the adjustments on this, within 5 or 10 minutes, you can be casting this like a pro. Now, which is the better, bait casting or spinning rod and reel? It depends on you. You can catch fish with any of them. I've caught a lot of fish by power fishing with heavier rod and reels and heavier equipment, and I've caught a lot of fish on the spinning rod and reels. But buy the best equipment you can afford. Check it, make sure it's in good shape, keep it maintained, and it can last you for many, many years. So I want to thank you, and God bless you, folks.